Hello and welcome to All Top 5s. You may already have seen my video on ancient Egyptian deities. If not, go and have a look, it's awesome. This time I'm going to focus on divine figures from ancient Greek mythology, and although they don't look as varied and bizarre as the Egyptian gods, their stories are quite incredible. There are so many gods, deities and lesser spirits that I'm going to try and focus on some of the lesser known examples that really intrigue me. Number 5. Moros. First up is Moros, which means doom in Greek, if I'm pronouncing it right, that is. He was the symbol of impending doom in Greek mythology, tasked with guiding mortal souls to their demise in an act of fate. He was born to Nyx, the Greek goddess of the night, but to her alone, as there was no male involved in his conception. Moros was the shapeless, invisible being whose dirty work happened behind the scenes, as it were, so he was rarely mentioned in mythology, instead being more of an assumed footnote, shaping the dark destinies of humans. One story that does mention him tells us that even Zeus, the king of the gods, wouldn't dare question Moros' intent, for to question and change this destiny would bring chaos upon the world. Quite an interesting figure in mythology, one feared even by the leader of the gods. Interestingly, Moros' siblings were also aspects of death. One, called Care, dealt with violent death, and the other, called Thanatos, dealt with the general concept of death and mortality. Number 4. Dionysus. Onto something a bit more upbeat then. In Greek mythology, the god of wine, fertility, theatre and ritual madness, was known as Dionysus, and in Rome he was called Bacchus. Thought to be a son of Zeus, Dionysus was depicted in many different ways, but he was usually described as having a procession of wild women following him, along with satyrs with erect penises, half of whom were dancing and playing music. Dionysus headed the procession in a chariot pulled by tigers. What a superb way to make an entrance. There was great variation in the mythology of Dionysus, especially in the story of his origin, a truly strange tale. One myth went that his mother, the mortal princess Semele of Thebes, had fallen pregnant with Zeus's child when they had begun to have an affair. Zeus's wife, Hera, learned of this and appeared to Semele as a crone. Semele began to trust the old woman and told her the secret of her pregnancy. Hera pretended not to believe the story, making Semele doubt the truth and invoking Zeus to come forth and reveal himself as proof. Despite Zeus's protestations, his hand was forced, and when he appeared in his true form, thunderbolts and all, the mortal Semele died immediately, as mortals couldn't simply see a god and live to tell the tale. Zeus somehow managed to rescue Dionysus, the unborn child, by sewing him into his thigh to protect him. Several months later, Zeus essentially gave birth to Dionysus by releasing him from his thigh on Mount Pramnos. Thus, Dionysus was known as being born by two mothers, and known as twice born from then on. Brilliant origin story, isn't it? Number 3. Hypnos. Actually half-brother to Moros, my number 5, and twin brother of Thanatos, the god of death and mortality, Hypnos was another mysterious deity or spirit that was the personification of sleep. He dwelled deep in a cave through which the river Lethe flowed, the river of forgetfulness. The cave was impermeable to natural light or the workings of the sun, thus he could sleep uninterrupted. There was also no door leading into his cave, so creaky hinges wouldn't wake him up either. Hypnos had 3 sons with his wife Pasithea, the goddess of relaxation. Each of his sons worked with him and shared his sleep theme. First, Hypnos would put mortals to sleep, then his sons, Phobetor, dealing with nightmares, Phantasos, dealing with dream illusions, and Morpheus, the winged personification of dreams who can appear in a dream in any human form. These 3 sons would go to work on making the person dream as they desired. Hypnos famously tricked Zeus in one story, the Iliad. Zeus's wife, Hera, hated Zeus during the Trojan War as they were on opposing sides, so she wanted to trick her husband and help her own side win the war. She called on Hypnos to put Zeus to sleep as part of her plan, but Hypnos, who had done this once before, feared Zeus's terrible wrath for a second time. Eventually, as a compromise, Hypnos accepted the offer of a wife, in the form of Hera's daughter Pasithea, who was for a long time the object of his desires. So, once they'd made the deal, Hera and Hypnos journeyed to the peak of Mount Ida, where Hera went to seduce Zeus, and Hypnos hid in a mist-shrouded pine tree nearby. As Hera seduced her own husband and made him vulnerable, Hypnos leapt in and put Zeus straight to sleep. He then travelled quickly to Poseidon, the god of the sea, telling him that Zeus was out of the picture for now and that he could ensure that Hera's side was aided without Zeus's interference. Luckily for Hypnos, Zeus never learned that he was responsible for this huge change in the war's course, and Hypnos went on to live happily with his beautiful new wife. That's a story to tell their grandchildren. Number 2. Ophion. Sometimes referred to as Ophioneus, this god enjoyed time as ruler of the entire world with his wife Eurynome before being deposed. There's very little information about Ophion, to be honest, but I'm including him in this list because of the fragments that we do have. One myth spoke of the relationship between Kronos, the personification of time, and Chthonié, personification of the earth. Ophion, a giant, was born during this time in the oceans, and the story tells of an epic battle between Kronos, the one who deposed Ophion in the end, and Ophion and his family. They made an agreement with each other that whichever family could push the other into the sea would triumph and rule both heaven and earth. One further myth that's quite interesting but appears to have been reinterpreted quite recently by the author Robert Graves involves Ophion quite heavily. Ophion was characterised often by a snake that was created by Eurynome as she danced across the seas. They had intercourse, somehow, and the pregnant Eurynome took the form of a dove to lay an enormous egg in the waters. Ophion then wrapped himself around the egg and protected it until it hatched, giving birth to the whole world. Eurynome and Ophion then married and ruled from Mount Olympus until Ophion's bragging that he created the world alone got him into trouble with Eurynome. She, his own wife, kicked his teeth out and exiled him to live forever in the underworld. Not quite the happy ending you'd expect, especially for a god. Number 1. Mnemosyne. Although a tough name to pronounce, if I've got it right, Mnemosyne was incredibly important in Greek mythology. She was the personification of memory and also one of the Titans, ancient beings that lived long before the more modern gods of Mount Olympus. Mnemosyne lived in Hades, the underworld, where she was in charge of a special pool of water named after her, the Mnemosyne. This pool was the opposite of the river Lethe, remember the one which runs through Hypnos' cave? The souls of the dead in the underworld had a choice of drinking from either the river Lethe or the Mnemosyne. If they drank from the Lethe, they forgot all of their past lives when they were reincarnated, but if they drank from the Mnemosyne, they would remember their past lives and retain that important wisdom. Probably the most important role of Mnemosyne was her children, the 9 Muses. It's widely agreed that Mnemosyne lay with Zeus for 9 nights in a row and gave birth to 9 children as a result. These children were very well respected and widely worshipped, as they were the 9 Muses, the goddesses of science, literature, and the arts. We use the word muse even today to mean inspiration for an artist or a writer. These muses were responsible for epic poetry, lyrical poetry, history, music, tragedy, hymns, dance, comedy, and astronomy. And for the ancient Greeks, a classical civilization that we view as highly cultured, knowledgeable, and artistic, the muses were a vital part of this civilization. So, Mnemosyne, who was actually the daughter of Gaia, goddess of the earth, the first goddess, was a crucial and highly respected goddess in her own right for her massive role in shaping ancient Greek mythology. And that's it from all top 5s for this week. I find most ancient cultures' religions absolutely fascinating, and although some of the myths are quite confused and often conflicting, there is some beautiful imagery and some hugely enjoyable stories to be found within. What do you think of these 5? Any others that you might have included in this list? Let me know in the comments, but remember, let's keep the comments nice and clean and friendly. I like them like that. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it the thumbs up on YouTube. It really helps me out and it lets others find this video as well, and they may well enjoy it too. Everybody wins. Finally, you can subscribe for a new video every single Tuesday. It'll be delivered right into your inbox. So peace and love to each and every one of you, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s. Bye bye.